Hi, Nine, and welcome to another romantic poetry lesson in our series on this particular topic. Today we are doing another poem about the city of London. We looked at William Blake's poem last week and how he had a very negative view of London and described some of the horrible things that he saw in the city. This one is William Wordsworth's poem on London, written in about a particular moment in 1802 when he happened to be in the city. It's much more positive than Blake's. It's got a much more kind of he's more impressed with the city than Blake was. It's called Composed upon Westminster Bridge, 1802, because that's when William Wordsworth was in the city and when he saw this particular sunrise. He didn't write it in 1802. He wrote this poem several years later when he was kind of back home in Cumbria, thinking about the travels he'd been on, the things he'd seen, and he just decided that this particular moment had such an impact on him in terms of his memory, he decided to write about it, despite the fact he was up in Cumbria when he did it. Okay, so hopefully you like it, and we'll get started with the lesson. So the plan today is you're going to enjoy a visual interpretation of a poem. Now that all depends on whether I can get YouTube to work properly. But I've made, quite a long time ago, I made an animated version of this poem, which I'm going to share with you today if I can get it to work. And then we've got a series of questions about the effective language features and the effective structural features. So I'm going to talk you through the poem and then you're going to face some questions on those two things. So fingers crossed that on the next slide there'll be an opportunity to watch a animated version of the poem that I've made. Right, so on this page there should be a link that pops up now for you to click on and watch the animated version of this poem that I've made for you several years ago. When it's finished, obviously come back to this video and we'll carry on. Right, so here is the poem. Let's read it through now together. Composed upon Westminster Bridge, 1802. Earth has not anything to show more fair, dull would he be of soul who could pass by. A sight so touching in its majesty, the city now doth like a garment wear, the beauty of the morning, silent, bare. Ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his first splendour valley, rock, or hill. Never saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still. So I've put a little translation here on the side for you, just so, because some of the language is a bit tricky. So the kind of modern translation that I've written is hopefully kind of just clarifies some of the tricky bits in this poem. So you might not need it, but it's there if you want it. And it's basically says, there is nothing more beautiful on earth. Only a man with a dead soul could pass by a view as majestic as this view. The city does, like clothes, wear the beauty of the morning. Quiet, empty, ships, towers, domes, theatres, and churches sleep, surrounded by fields and under the sky. Everything is bright and glittering in the pure air. The sunrise has never been this beautiful. Even the first sunrise on the land wasn't as beautiful. I never felt such deep calm. The river glides with a mind of its own. Dear God, the houses seem to be sleeping. Everything in that mighty city is still. Okay, so here are our questions that I'd like to answer today. And if you run out of time, don't worry. You might be able to catch up with them later on in the week if you get more time later. So question 1, explain the effect of the word majesty. So there's the word majesty there in line 3. What is the effect of using that particular word? What kind of connotations go with that particular word, majesty? Question 2, what language technique is used in line 4? So there is line 4. The city doth now like a garment wear. So what language technique is used in that particular line? Question 3, in line 6 there is a list of things. What does this list suggest about London? So there's line 6 and the list of things. What does that suggest about the city of London? Question 4, how does line 8 make London seem perfect? So line 8, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. How does that line make London seem perfect? Question 5. What is the effect this view has on Wordsworth in line 11? So there's line 11. Never saw I, never felt a calm so deep. So what effect does that line seem to be suggesting that the views had on London, on Wordsworth, I should say, that the view of London has had on Wordsworth? Question 6. What's the effect of using the phrase mighty heart in line 14? So there we are, mighty heart. What does that suggest, or what's the effect that that has in the description of London? Those are the language questions. Now on to structure. How does the first line set up the rest of the poem? So there's the first line. Earth has not anything to show more fair. How does that relate or set up the rest of the poem? Question 8. What is the rhyme pattern in the poem? Now, hopefully this is not too tricky, but I just want to kind of draw attention to the word majesty in line 3. It doesn't have a complete rhyme with the word by, but it's kind of like a half rhyme, so you have to give Wordsworth the benefit of the doubt there that there is a rhyme in line 2 and 3. The rest should be fairly straightforward. So what is the rhyme pattern in the poem? Question 9. How is the rhyme in lines 1 to 8 symbolic of the view from the bridge? So here's line 1 and it goes down to line 8. So what is it about the rhyme pattern in that section that could be judged to be symbolic of the view from the bridge? It's a tricky one, that, so think carefully. Question 9. Question 10, sorry. How many beats are there in each line? Now remember, when you're counting beats, you count the syllables. So it'll be earth is 1, has 2, not 3, anything, that's 4, 5, and 6, to show more fair. So just work your way through the poem, counting the lines. If Wordsworth's done a good job, they should all be the same length. And finally, question 11, what type of poem is this poem? It's got 14 lines, and that's a clue. So if you're not sure, just Google what is a 14-line poem, and you should get the answer. Right, so those are your questions for today. Hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I shall go through the answers with you for these questions sometime in the future. Okay, well done though, guys. Have a good rest of your day and take care.